Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. My name's Meg. I am part of the marketing team here at PowerToFly, and I am super excited to host today's session and dig in on this subject with our guest speaker, Helen. As we get started here, I just want to go over a couple of real quick housekeeping items super quickly for everybody here. If you've joined us for a previous Chat and Learn or office hour session, this will be kind of repeat and old hat for you, but bear with me, it won't take very long. The biggest thing I have to tell you is that today is all about you. It's about our audience, our participation from you guys, and we want to make sure that you get as much out of today as we put into it. So to that end, please feel free to participate. Like you can come on, you can turn your cameras on if you wish, come off mute, whatever you'd like to do so that you can join us to comment or add or ask questions of our guests. As you're doing that, if you have any kind of privacy concerns, the best thing I can tell you is that if you come off mute, you will show up on the recording of today's session that we're doing, as well as on the, you'll show up on the recording as well as the live stream that's going to our website right now. So as we do that, oops, sorry guys, just moving my slides around here. There we go. So as we do that, if you want to comment or ask questions, but you don't want to show up on the recording, you're still more than welcome to participate. All you'll need to do is put your question or your comment into the Zoom group chat. You'll type it in there instead of coming off mute. Turning cameras on, turning cameras off, doesn't matter. You won't show up on the recording while they're live stream. You just, it's just if you come off mute, you will. So to that end, what we're going to do, we've compiled a bunch of the questions that y'all asked in advance of today's session, and we tried to kind of put them in like a conversational flow. But like I said, this is all about you. So if you want to be sure that your question gets asked and answered, then the best way to do that is to make sure that you come off mute and ask, or that you put your question into the live chat. If for whatever reason you want your question asked, but you want to be kept anonymous, not a problem. All you have to do is select my name from the drop-down menu in the Zoom group chat. So instead of sending it to everyone, you'll send it just to me, to Meg Alexander _PowerToFly. So as we're going along here, I will be asking the questions of Helen. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to add, please feel free. The one thing I will tell you is if you're going to start, turn on your audio and start talking, feel free to interrupt me, but please, please, please try not to interrupt either our speaker, Helen, or any of the other attendees. Just kind of use your best judgment. Make sure that you are putting yourself back on mute once you're done actively speaking. I will be doing the same thing, so that way nobody has to listen to the bulldogs that are snoring under my desk right now. If I do mute you, it's not a rebuke or anything. Please don't feel like you can't come off mute then to ask questions. It's just to make sure that we have audio clarity stays good for the recording as well as for everybody that's listening in today. Last but not least, you can follow us on our various social media channels. We are at PowerToFly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at PowerToFly. So all of our videos, our recorded videos live both on our website as well as on our YouTube channel. So once the recording is over today, within the next 1 to 2 business days, you'll get an email link so that you can go back and rewatch this recording. That link is going to be sent to everybody who registered for today's session, whether you joined for 5 minutes, stayed for the full 30, or didn't join at all. If you registered, you do get an email with that rewatch link attached. If you want to rewatch or send the chat to somebody, send the recording to somebody earlier than when we send you the link, you can also, like I said, go check out our YouTube channel. All of our videos live there as well. So as we get started here, I'm going to introduce you to today's speaker, and then we will get started. So Helen, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I know you've been, this is I think your second or third office hours with us, and at least your third chat on this topic. Can you give the attendees a little bit of background information on yourself for why you are our preferred speaker for this subject?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Meg, and welcome everyone. My background, I spent many, many years in recruiting and talent acquisition. I did some research on intersectional age discrimination in the workplace as a person who has experienced age discrimination personally. It prompted me to do this research, a study on age discrimination. And I found that for women, age discrimination actually started around 40, which is also what the ADEA, or the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, covers 40, and that's part of the reason that it does start at 40. So I decided to take my experience as a career counselor and coach and to apply it to women over 40. And so I started Tanagui Career Consultants, and I try to help people in formatting their resume, in honing their interview skills, in really searching for what they want to do, what their goals are, and then help them to reach those goals. So yes, that's how I wound up as Tanagui, which is actually named after my children, Tanya, Natasha, and Guido. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right, so I know we have a couple of questions that we can start with. And then as we get going, please, like I said, all of our attendees, please feel free to come off mute, ask your questions or add comments. If we're reviewing one of your questions that you submitted, you're more than welcome to kind of jump in and add some more context for us if you'd like. So one of the most popular questions that was asked, this person asked, what guidance would you provide for those who are 45 years old plus during and post-pandemic for job searching?
Well, I think, of course, we all know it's a very unique situation, the pandemic, something that none of us have lived through previously. And it appears to be something that will be with us for a long time. So I think some of the things we need to remember from a personal perspective is just to try to keep a positive mindset. That's very important in a job search, because there will always be instances where you're not selected and you just need to keep moving forward. So you really need to keep a positive mindset. Also, you need to be, I think, under the circumstances, a little bit more patient, because the hiring managers and the recruiters that you're interacting with also have a lot on their plate usually today. And so it might take a little longer for things to work themselves out. So I think you need to be a little patient. As far as the job search, I think the same efforts have to apply pre, post, and during pandemic. You have to have a resume that reflects your skills, specific achievements. It needs to not be able to date you. So you need to be aware of what is currently acceptable. For example, there's no objectives, there's summaries. So you need to not date yourself in a resume. You should not go back further than 10 to 15 years. If you have employment that you want to represent that goes back further than that, you should be representing it in the summary section or in your skills and achievements. At the point where you might fill out an application, you would specifically indicate those experiences that you wanted to represent and however many years you had to go back. But on your resume, it shouldn't be more than 10 to 15, and you can then just represent what your skills are pertaining to those previous experiences. You should certainly be on LinkedIn. And through LinkedIn, if you research companies that you're interested in and identify companies that you feel are strong advocates for women and for quote unquote older workers, you can go on LinkedIn and search under those companies and find contacts. Reach out to those contacts and ask them for a coffee meeting to introduce yourself, or an exploratory interview so that you can present your skills and your background, how it pertains to their company. Networking is just critical. I mean, there are some studies that say networking is responsible for 80% of jobs. So that there are often also jobs that aren't promoted or posted for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a company just wanted to manage more of the input. So by networking, by finding people, and through networking, you're not going up to someone and saying, here's my resume, do you have a job for me? But you're reaching out to contacts, to friends, to former business associates, to people that you've uncovered on LinkedIn. And you're saying, do you know someone? Is there someone I can reach out to with my background? So you're just asking them for to be a network for you to reach past them to get a job. You're not asking them for a job. So you should be very comfortable
in reaching out to people. Most people do like to help, so that shouldn't be a problem. But I would say those are the important things: making sure your resume is not going to date you, making sure you're doing your networking. Another thing is you really need to, when you're job searching, you need to set a plan. So you need to designate, this is how much time every day I'm going to dedicate to my job search, whether it is networking function, whether it is researching companies, finding places that you think are suitable for your experience and your skills. So you really need to put a plan in place so that you kind of have a structure and you'll adhere to it. That will make you more successful.
All right, so while you were sharing some of those details with us, we did have a couple people that asked questions in the chat. Carolyn wrote in, you said you highlighted 10 years as like how far you should go back. What should you do if you were with a company for 25 years?
Right. Well, that would be the exception. If you've been with the same company for 25 years, you need to represent how many years you've been with that company. So that would be the only exception, is if you've been in one stable employment for more than, it's 10 to 15 years that you should go back, but it's unavoidable on your resume when you have 25 years in one place. So you kind of have to make sure that the rest of your resume, again, doesn't date you. You need to make sure that you have a summary, not an objective, that you have very specific skills achievements that are very specific and related to successes. You need to be very specific about your responsibilities. You need to, when you're formatting the opening of your resume, you should have your cell phone, your email address, not your geographic address, because again, that dates you and it puts you in the age box. So those are the things you need to pay attention to. There's no way around if you've been 25 years in one place, avoiding 25 years in one place. But there are great benefits to that. So I think it's definitely how you're going to present yourself in that resume that will make the difference.
Yeah, and Vanjie actually commented on what you had said about LinkedIn connections. They said, I've built my LinkedIn connections to almost 1,100 by connecting with people in my field at the companies where I've applied for jobs. It's the last step I do when I'm applying. So that's a lovely way to do it. And if you're at all like, kind of nervous about how to make those connections or how to network, it's really good to, listen to what Helen said. You're not just going in to like ask someone for a favor. You want to try and, build a relationship with that person. And so maybe it starts off with, hey, can I ask for, what information you have about this company? What do you like about working for them? Or if, it might be somebody who's not really connected to the company that you're applying for, but maybe worked for them in the past or is in the same industry. We do have a lot of chat and learns where we talk about how to do that networking step and in a way that helps foster that relationship without, without like being like a weird ask or being too vague or, a request that's not likely to be answered, or you're not going to get what you actually want from that person. We've got a couple more people commenting in the chat saying AOL email addresses are age indicators too. Hotmail might also be an age indicator. DK is asking, so you shouldn't put a town or a state on a resume?
You can put your town and state, but not your physical address. You shouldn't put your physical address. You can if you want, but considering the way that most jobs are acquired today and where you're posting your jobs, it's best not to in any event. But that really is a bit of an aging. If you're applying locally, then you can put your town and state. If you're applying remotely, that might be something you don't include. But yeah, it's definitely not a physical address.
Mm-hmm. The only time I can think that you might want to include it, even if we're like for a remote position, is if their compensation varies based on your location. Because if you're not located in a tech hub, like I'm in Ohio, so the pay that I get is based on my location and what the going rate is here, so that for the founders that are headquartered in New York, they know that they're going to get kind of a deal on me where they might not get so much of a deal as somebody who's
right. And it's true, if they may be looking for someone in a certain region.
from a remote perspective. So that's certainly the town and the state you're in are helpful in those instances, but yeah, not physical address.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's move on to one of our other questions that was submitted. This person had asked, in your experience, how can someone like me with 11 plus years of experience in my field convince the hiring manager or team that I'm not overqualified and am totally ready and willing to work with a younger crowd?
Well, I think we all know age discrimination is real. So we have to address the part of it that we can, which is what we can control, which is managing our response. Again, how we present ourselves, both from our resume and making sure that that doesn't reflect any or reflect on your age so that they can then put you in that box. You need to show your value with statements on what you've achieved, what you've managed, projects you've managed. Be very specific. If you've increased revenues, increased customer participation, increased customer satisfaction, whatever it is, you need to be very specific about it. You need to focus on the needs. If you've researched a company and researched the job description that you're responding to, you can pinpoint and highlight the items that are going to be in response to those needs. You really need to understand their needs and present to them your value related to their needs. And I think that takes away from the fact that how many years you've been and whether you're overqualified. They're looking for someone who can do the job that they need done. And whether you have 11 years experience or 5 years experience, if you can do the job that they need done, they're going to be interested in you. If you go to an interview or a video interview, you need to ask questions of them so that you can then target your experience relative to what their needs are. The key, I think, is just keeping it focused on their needs and how you can handle those needs and be very successful. You always have to keep in mind also, from the time you arrive or the time you're on video, you're being evaluated. How you sit, how you dress, how you carry yourself, your energy, your passion, incredibly, whether you carry a purse or not might make a difference to someone. So you always have to keep that in mind. You have to appear confident, energetic, passionate. And a good practice would be recording yourself on your phone and critiquing yourself, looking at, very honestly, looking at yourself and seeing how you see yourself being perceived. So I think that's a good practice. But yeah, it's all going to be in how you present yourself and related to, again, that's why you need to look at the job descriptions, even perhaps beyond them, job descriptions in the industry, and how does your experience meet those job descriptions and will enhance what they need to have done. So it's relating it to them.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Related to all of that, sort of. I just, I got laid off years ago, and we started my husband and I started our own business. It was a creative business. He handled the creative end. I handled the administrative end. However, when I go to apply for jobs, what's my experience? I was the owner of the business, and I'm yet applying to be an administrative assistant. They say, well, why would you were an owner. How are you going to work for me? And I don't know how to present that in a way that won't drive people away or drop my resume off just because yes, I owned the business, but it was a very small 2-person, and I handled the administrative side of it. I did the bookkeeping and calling the clients and dealing with things like that. That's all I really did. It was the administrative stuff, anything that I would do in an administrative position. And I don't know how to present that properly.
I think you have to really highlight that in your summary and in your expertise, those tasks that you did. And for example, if you built the customer base from 0 to 50 in 2005, let's say.
Mhm.
You need to be specific on how you increased and enhanced that business. And so I think that if you focus in the early part of your resume on the summary and expertise that you have for those tasks,
Right.
that it'll catch their attention. And then you can also include a cover letter explaining that this was a small private business
Yeah.
where you were responsible for these tasks. You basically maintained that business
So
on the administrative side.
yeah. So, but should I include that I was owner, or should I downplay that and just say that I was the administrative, assistant for the business? Because again, I don't want to be blocked off just because.
Well, what about a creative title like administrative partner?
Okay.
So you're not saying that you were one of the owners. There were two of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the administrative side. So like, for example, today, a lot of times you'll see in contract jobs, you'll see, recruiting partner. So if you use that term, then you might have an opportunity to get your foot in the door and explain to them what your role was.
Yeah. That's the problem, is just getting that. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so we've had a couple people ask really great questions in the chat, so I'm compiling a couple link lists for people. The first one's going to be about some of our past panels we've had with Helen and other people on ageism in the workforce. The other one is going to be more about networking and how to kind of make virtual networking and make LinkedIn connections and that kind of thing work for you. So I'm going to put those links into the channel here in just a couple minutes. As we're doing that, there were a couple other questions that people had raised. One person had asked, let's see, where did it go? Sorry, there we go. Vanjie had said, I'm a little embarrassed to ask, but do you have any advice about things like dyeing gray hair or any other like physical changes to physically appear younger? Or is that not something that you recommend?
I think you have to do what you're comfortable with. And I'm letting my gray grow in now, but I think that the most important thing beyond the gray hair, I don't think that necessarily the gray hair, although what makes you comfortable and confident is critical. So if having gray hair doesn't make you as confident as you'd like to be, then you should consider dyeing it. But if you're good with your gray hair, the things that are really important, again, is your energy level, the way you carry yourself, the kind of the dress is more important than I think the gray hair or not. A current hairstyle that's well maintained, if that's possible with the pandemic. But I think it's what you're comfortable with as far as the gray hair. I've read a lot of articles on go gray, stay gray, go, leave gray. And it's a personal choice of whatever makes you comfortable and confident, because that's the key, is you being confident.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point, is that you don't want to make a bunch of changes that you're not really confident in, or anything that you think, that you're doing to potentially just please another person or get, make a certain statement. If it's not something that you're comfortable with, that's going to read really, really clearly for the interviewer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm sending this last link for you guys. I'm trying to make sure I included all of them and haven't duplicated my list here. So there's the last list too. So let me go back here and make sure we didn't miss anybody's questions. So there's another person asking, can you speak to the application process that includes personality quizzes? I feel like many of these are designed to weed out older applicants.
I think that, again, there's no way around them. So if a company utilizes them, then you're kind of stuck with them. And what their use is can vary. And I have worked with companies in the past that have used them and for varying reasons. But I think what you need to do really is do some research on companies that are very comfortable and embracing both women and older people. There are a lot of companies, there are articles, there is a list of top number of companies for women, favoring women, companies that actually embrace bringing women back, moms who have been out of the workplace. They have almost like internship programs for women coming back to the workplace. So there are companies that are not shy to embrace those two areas, and perhaps those are you need to do the research and find those companies that relate to your background and try and again, this is where you find the companies, you do your research on LinkedIn, you make your connections, you ask them, the person you connect with, if you can do a Zoom coffee with them, and you just try and find your niche in those areas. But I think that's the way around it if you're struggling with personality quizzes.
And that is a really good thing to call out and like really focus on what Helen's saying here, is that like when you're interviewing with a company, it is just as much you interviewing the company as it is the company interviewing you. So finding these things out, granted, there's certain things you're never going to know until you're inside a company, but you can try and limit that list as much as you can by finding out if they really want to, if they really want to follow up with you, if they are the kind of place where you're going to be comfortable and supported, or if this is going to be, from the jump, something that you have to kind of readjust to fit in, and some people are okay doing that because they're trying to, change, maybe pivot in their careers, or they are just trying to, eke out a couple more years until they decide they want to retire. So it doesn't really matter if they like make a home at this company or not, but it's definitely something that you should think about. Because you could find out, it doesn't matter if the company wants to hire you or not, if it's not someplace you want to work.
Right, absolutely, Meg. It's very important, because if they are a company that doesn't have that embrace of, for example, age, you might get in there and be very uncomfortable, and you don't want to do that either.
Absolutely. I'm also seeing we've got a couple of people asking if the links were going to be included in the recording. So I will, I'll send the links that I'm sending out in the chat right now to Nicole, so that when she emails the recording out, everybody has a chance to see those. Let's see, we've only got a couple minutes left here, so let me try and get to one more question. So this person said, I have a BA I obtained in the distant past. I also have a recent associate's that's in a different field. Should I only mention the associates when applying for a job if it doesn't require the BA? So that way I don't have to explain why I changed gears and how old I am. I asked because 2 places I interviewed wanted to know the BA graduation date, and when I told one place, they said I was too old. So first off, that's discrimination on its face, and They should absolutely know better than that. But like we talked about just a question ago, at least they're showing their cards and saying like, okay, well, you're too old. Well, then obviously that's not a place you want to work anyway.
Right, and someone asked one of the questions that we won't have time for, but about identifying ageism. That's one way you identify. They have no legal right to ask you that question. In fact, on an application, on an online application, I've seen recommendations to put in all 9s for your graduation date. On your resume, when you're older, your education should be at the bottom, not at the top. But yeah, absolutely, there should be. You should not include dates, and you should not answer that question, and you should just walk away if they ask that question, as hard as that is. But again, I think you have to identify what your goal is and what you're trying to do, and make your decision based on that goal. If you're trying to pivot, although there may be positions that you apply for that require a bachelor's, and you're going to have to put it in there. So no date, put it at the bottom, and you don't have to share that date with anyone. So I think, yeah. Okay, so let's say that if you are put in that position and you don't have the option to just like, pick up your purse and walk out, what is a good reply that will not like stop that interview in its tracks? Could you say something like could you, like my favorite thing, if I don't know what to say, is to answer with a question. So like, well, why would you ask that? Is there a reason that you want to know that? Because I know that it's not always very friendly or very like cordial to say something like, well, that's illegal and you can't ask that.
Right. No, that'll end it very quickly. So I think you're absolutely right. I think you need to, you can take a breath. It's like microaggressions. You can take a breath and come back with a question to put them on the spot. I don't, I'm not quite sure I understand how that's relative to my skills for this position. So, can we, try to redirect them to your skills and just say, I don't think the year that I graduated is relative to my experience and the skills that I can bring to do the job that you need done. So it's a nice way of saying no.
Yeah, that's a very good way to address it. Okay, I know we are over by a minute. The one last thing I did want to address is there was a couple questions asked in the chat about how to find companies that either favor women or are friendly and are welcoming of older workers. Helen, I know you touched on this briefly, but one of the things I do want to flag for people, because I hear it a lot in these like special interest chats, is ask them about ERGs. Ask them if they have an employee resource group for women specifically, if they have an employee resource group for returnships or returning workers. Ask if they have an employee resource group for older workers, if they have, you can ask these questions. And the worst they can tell you is no. But even no isn't a bad thing as long as they follow it up with, I wonder if there would be any interest in that, if you do end up taking this position, then maybe that's something that we could get started. But is there anything else that they could ask, like quick questions wise for an interview to gauge whether or not this company is going to be welcoming?
No, but for basic research, I mean, Forbes does a list of companies that are friendly to women. And if you Google companies with returnships, you'll find the internships. There's probably, I think, maybe at least half a dozen of them. So if you Google that, it'll tell you exactly which companies. But I think that Meg's question suggestion, if you're networking, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're talking to someone, those are very good questions to identify where their focus is. But you can do some research, just Googling returnships, companies with returnships, and the Forbes list of companies friendly to women.
All right, sorry guys, I was just trying to answer a couple last minute questions in the chats here. It looks like a couple people had questions about like the fake filler dates. So that what Helen was saying was, fill in like all 9s or 0s or 1s or something to like take up space in that date. Moto had said some person's excuse was that if you must not really have graduated if you were unwilling to give a date of graduation. I would just tell them I'll send you a picture of my diploma, or you can call the institution. The institution will verify that I graduated, because the institution also is not going to give your date of graduation. So if they're really that strict, fine, but it just sounds like a lot of hoops jumping to, excuse.
And at the point where they have an offer on the table, you can share dates with them, but there's no legal reason for you to share before that offer's on the table, and they have no legal grounds to stand on. And that's definitely, you can document that one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And this time always goes too quickly, so I really look forward to the next one of these that we have. Again, my name is Meg. I'm more than happy to have hosted today's chat. Helen, thank you so much for spending time with us and really giving us the benefit of your experience. I'm dropping some links in the chat where you guys can connect with Helen or myself on LinkedIn if you'd like. I'm also including a link so you can check out some of our upcoming virtual chats that are happening in the next week or so. We have stuff scheduled out for the rest of the month as well, so please feel free to take a look at those. Yeah, I guess we'll just call it a day with this, and I hope to see more of you on upcoming chats.
Yes, thank you all for attending. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.